Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mature Muscle Podcast. This is going to be episode 3. And good one today, isn't it, Phil?
This one's, this is going to be epic for those who are of our age and a bit older, I guess, if they were... Well, you tell them.
Yeah. So we've got James Crossley, or Aka Hunter, from Gladiator, who I'm sure many of you know if you follow him. He's a personal trainer himself, which is one of the reasons we've got him on, because he's obviously got something to tell us in terms of that. And also just a little bit of, he's kind of found spiritualism a little bit. We're going to ask him about that. And basically how he's training now compared to how he was then, and what his priorities are. Is he still going for size? Is he still going for some muscle, or is he kind of settled into a little bit more of a longevity kind of health thing now? So yeah, a couple of good questions, hopefully. And yeah, we'll see how we do.
Yeah. Right. Let's get into it, mate.
Okay, welcome to Mature Muscle Podcast, and we've got James Crossley, aka Hunter, with us. Hello, mate.
Mature muscle speaking.
Well, that's something we've all got in common here.
Hey.
All right, yeah, Phil's a bit younger. I know he looks 10 years older, but...
Oh, God. Well, you always know when they're young because they've got the baseball back on backwards, aren't they? Although I do still like that look.
Yeah.
That's when you're fighting for youth, isn't it?
Yeah. A couple more years of it. When
You've gone for the Peaky Blinders look.
Yeah. I've got about 30 of these, actually. I've gone very Peaky Blinders. I've gone a bit too much Peaky Blinders, I think.
So, yeah, we're just going to have a general chat about, obviously, you're a personal trainer. You're not what you'd call mature yet, but I suppose you are. But we're just
I think I would call over 40 mature muscle. I think that's what I would call mature muscle.
That's kind of what we're aiming for is the 40-plus crowd, but also, you know, it's relevant to everyone, isn't it? So, so obviously we were real big fans.
Hang on a sec, because I've just had some eggs delivered.
Yes.
Let me just go in.
One for the bloopers. I told you that. I thought it was going to be my dog that made a fucking noise, and it wasn't. It was his. Brilliant.
I didn't know they delivered to San Francisco. That's bloody good catering, isn't it?
Sorry about that, yeah. Go on, inside. So I get them delivered from a farm in Newcastle. Check this out.
Oh, wow.
It's like 90 eggs.
Do they helicopter them in? That's good for the environment.
No, it's some man with a van. It's some man with a van.
90 eggs is like 2 days worth.
No, I don't eat a lot. I eat like 3 a day, but they're just really nice quality. They're like gold standard. The quality, you know, when you eat I used to eat, when I was a child, I used to go to the market with my dad and we'd get 90 eggs. So I don't buy them a week. I bet that lasts me like a month. 90 eggs. I used to do, 3 a day. I don't know. We'll have to do the maths, won't we?
Yeah.
10 threes are 30. 3 times 3.
Take your shoes and socks off, mate.
1 month. So, yeah, we used to do every week 90 eggs. That was kind of, you know, I'd go there with him and do my big market shop. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, not that many eggs.
I still get through a shitload of eggs. It's just staple for me. Yeah, definitely.
Right, sorry about that anyway, but
no, that's fine, mate. Don't worry. This is all very loose and relaxed, and you know, it's no problem. So one of the first things I wanted to talk to you about really was the circle. How did you get on with that?
It was difficult, really, because it wasn't what I expected. I think with I went in there thinking that reality would be like reality, me choosing stuff, and I didn't. But it's just so manipulated by the producers.
Yeah.
That really the contestants are just chess pieces for them.
Right.
And so that really kind of wound me up. And then, sorry, my phone's ringing now. And then, sorry, I'm just going to put it on. This is really bad, isn't it?
No, don't worry, mate. Honestly, don't worry about it.
And yeah, so it was difficult, and they hit a lot of stress factors for you. So an early night was like 2 a.m. We were going to bed at like 2, 3 a.m. They were filming at 9, and these bright lights, you don't see anybody, and they manipulate you. And so by the end of it, you know, I mean, what was the worst bit for me was at the end, you're supposed to choose who you go and see.
Yeah.
And I basically said, well, I don't want to see this person. I want to see this person. This was like 3:30 a.m. And they said, no, you're seeing this person. No, you're seeing. So they chose who I wanted to see. And then I got in there and I could clearly have been ambushed by the production.
Yeah.
And so I ended up having some furious rows with the production. The contestants were all brilliant, but I just think it's a naughty show, you know. Yeah, it's so fake, but also that it's dangerous because when you're in that heightened state, little things make a difference.
Yeah.
And I had a long meeting with the producers. I had about 60 messages from contestants saying, you know, they were all backing me up, saying, you know, we've had real trouble with this, and he sat there in front of a table and he said to me, "It's not manipulated, it's produced." And I was just like, you know, but you live and learn. Life's about lessons, and they invited me on, and they were a bit naughty in many ways, but yeah, they invited me on, and it was I was a bit of an odd. I mean, I'll tell you quite a funny story. I didn't understand why they wanted me on, because I'd been a reserve on a few of these shows in the past, like celebrity shows. Like there was a circus one, The Farm, Total Wipeout. And they told me there was no celebrity show. And I said, but this is really odd that you want me on there, because, you know, I've been on this TV show for years. And they were like, oh, no, it's going to be great. Anyway, so I got to Manchester and I had to do a week in isolation with my dogs on the 19th floor of this flat. Oh, wow. I got to Manchester, and that was probably one of the worst bits. And the lift opens and Pete Wicks stood there, who's a friend of mine.
Right.
And I was like, Pete, he was like, so we thought we were on the same show, because obviously we didn't know what was going on. And we were having these little text things, you know, working out how we were going to win it together. Anyway, then I realized he was going in the next day. So that's how I found out. So they lied to me about so much stuff, and then they manipulated so many parts that, you know, by the end of it, I was just like, and I just kind of didn't do any press for them. I've just kind of, rather than try and make something of it, I've just thrown it under a carpet and said, okay, that was a mistake, move on. So that's how
okay. I didn't realize it had gone quite that bad. I mean, I saw that you had a bit of shit online over you being an NHS nurse, but I was thinking, well, that's the whole point of the show, wasn't it?
Well, I wanted to be an aerobics instructor. That was my initial plan. I'd never seen the show when they contacted me. I'd never actually seen it. And they said it's a popularity contest. That's all I knew about it. So I said, I was literally clapping for the carers outside when they said this. And I said, well, there's no one more popular than a nurse. And anyway, they sent me some links to the show. And I thought, well, I'm not going to get away with being a nurse because I know nothing about nursing. So I said, I studied art at college. So I said, well, my parents own an art gallery. This was my story. And I'll be, they own a gym. And I studied art at college because that's what I studied. So I knew loads about art, and I knew loads about the gym. So I thought this was a logical thing. And they were like, no, we want you to be a nurse now. So it was actually them that kind of asked me to be a nurse. It wasn't even although I set the seed by saying there's no one more popular than a nurse, I didn't want to be a nurse because it was a lot of work for me to get, you know, I had to spend hours.
Read up on it. Yeah.
No. Well, yeah, I was speaking to different nerves, and I could have done without the aggro. So again, that was a bit unfair because they threw me under a bus there as well. So, you know, anyway, it was what it is. And to be fair, as far as messages to me, they were all really nice. I think there was just a couple of papers but I never really had any bad. People seem to quite enjoy it. And like you say, it's the fact it is what it is. It is supposed to be you pretending to be somebody else. And the idea was to split the money because the contestants didn't really get paid for it. They just got a per diem. So the idea, I knew some of these guys had left their jobs. So the idea was to give half the money to the NHS in York, where I was from, and half the money to the contestants. So everybody was winning. So I was trying to do the right thing by everybody. But, you know, like I say, it's a learning curve. But I didn't enjoy it. And I think they need to definitely make some changes.
Yeah. It's very American, isn't it? Maybe they need to adapt it for the British kind of audience. I don't know.
Yeah, well, they film the American circles straight after. They fly them over and they do it here. So it is an English show, and then but it's all over the world. It's obviously popular. But what I was amazed was I did an Insta Live with Pandora, who's a DJ for, I think she's on Heart at the moment. And the amount of messages I got from ex-contestants after that, just saying, this is exactly what we went through. This is exactly what we think. Really? And it just seemed like it was a universal thing that, you know, I wasn't aware of it. But like, you know what it's like in life, mate. We have good experiences and bad experiences. You have to learn from them and move on, don't you? So it was what it was, basically. That's
a good segue, actually. So change it to training. So obviously you're in the mature crowd yourself now. So how have you adapted your type of training, your philosophy towards training going forward now when you're a bit older? You know, obviously things hurt a bit more. You know, things are a bit harder. Healing's a bit slower. You know, what's your take on that? How do you change?
Yeah, well, when I did Gladiators, I dislocated my left shoulder 6 times. So that's always been like my Achilles heel, weak link. And then when Gladiators finished, kind of in my late 30s, I worked as an actor and stuff like that. So there was kind of this interim time. And I started competing in strongman at about 38. And I did that for 10 years, 8 to 10 years. And I got a lot of injuries from that. And that more injuries than I did from Gladiators, really. And I had a couple of injuries that took 18 months and they were still lingering. And fully enough, it's when we were coming into lockdown, the first lockdown. So that's when I really made the changes. And I kind of changed my mantra to, rather than annihilate the body and win and fail to prepare to fail, to, you know, nourish the body and embrace it and love it. And so I massively changed mine, where the heavy, crazy low rep weights have gone. And although I enjoy low rep training, I'm doing a very steady weights, and I'm mixing it with like mindfulness, with yoga and all different kinds of fitness, rather than just heavy weights, which is what I was doing for those 8 years. So it's much more controlled and much more varied. So I've added a lot more different movement patterns into it, rather than just the basic ones. And I'm obviously avoiding, funnily enough, my right shoulder was the one I've had massive problems with recently. And yeah, so I still have little niggles, but I just am very aware that I'm slowing the tempo down on everything, rather than explosive reps, which when you're doing strongman is that explosive power. It's more time under tension and quality repetitions that I'm kind of working on. And weights now, I only do 2 or 3 days a week. I don't hammer it like I used to. I do the yoga twice, and you know, I just keep active rather than. I've lost that competitive edge that I used to have, where I always had to have something to train for. I always had to have a competition or a record or something I was going for. And it took a while to get rid of that. When I first started doing yoga, I was seeing how long I could stand on my hands for, you know, and timing it. And it's completely the wrong attitude. It's more like it's about your practice and doing it for your body. And as a man, as free, like men in our, well, one not as old as 2 of us, but it's about having props that, feeling it in the right way, not trying to copy the girl that looks like a pretzel next to you. Is finding your own way and your own postures that work really well for you. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. And what I'm nearly 48, and this is going to be how it goes from now on, I think. Yeah,
it's quite a tough transition you have to make. And I did the same, pretty much the same thing. I never competed at a high level or anything, but you know, I've just found that I need a lot longer warm up. You know, I need a lot more preparation, like a lot of mobility now that I didn't used to. I used to just be able to jump on a bench and go. I mean, now if I did that, I'd be in excruciating pain for hours afterwards. It's just, you need to persuade the body now, don't you, to train? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think in your 20s you have 9 lives. I never used to warm up. I used to, warm up a little bit, and now it just proves that if you maybe implemented that at a younger age, but I think when you push your body to the limit, you're always going to have problems. And I've always been one of these that's pushed it to the limit for various reasons. So you're going to pay the price at some point. And I know a lot of guys still competing in their 50s and they've had knee replacements or hips or something. So I think there comes to a point where you've really got to listen to your body and say, hang on a second, if this keeps happening, it's time to make a change. But mentally, the hardest thing is mentally changing, getting that mental switch. And I see a lot of people, they just keep going and they're ripping their body apart because they can't get the mental switch.
How low do your reps go now then? Because it's so, I know I go into the gym sometimes, I got to do 10 and trying to avoid doing 3 or 4 and going heavier.
Five actually. Five.
Is that 5? That's probably about the same as me. Yeah. 5 is probably. What about you, Lee?
I might do some singles, very rarely, and some 3s if I'm deadlifting. But I periodize it a lot more now. So I'll have a 3-month kind of light phase and between heavy sessions. You can't just keep mashing the body like we could when we were younger.
It's basically it's basically training smarter, isn't it, as you get older?
That's exactly it. You've got to be a lot more, as I said, periodize it so that it's not just the same thing, bang, 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 week after week after week, grinding away at the same joints and the same plane of movement and all that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So on the yoga subject, did you qualified to teach? Is that what you do now, or is that more the direction?
Yeah, well, I was working as a strength and conditioning coach, so I was training athletes really. And then basically when lockdown came, work got really quiet, and it was about having a purpose for me. And my girlfriend's a yoga teacher, so I've been on a lot of retreats with her. And I started yoga initially during Gladiators, because when I first started Gladiators, I couldn't do any of the events. I was a bodybuilder. I couldn't climb the wall. I couldn't do anything. So that first year after we'd finished filming, that's when I got into yoga, and I've kind of picked it up and put it down for years. So I got qualified during the first lockdown. So I'm qualified to teach vinyasa and yin, and then I do the gong baths as well. So I kind of got all those qualifications as lockdown came, and it gave me a nice focus and purpose to do when I wasn't really working that much.
Yeah, it's without doubt the best way to keep mobile, isn't it? Because you still see people just hoiking their leg up behind them at the end of a workout, and that's their bit of stretching, and I think there's still this whole thing about static stretching being it just doesn't do a lot. And you spend a good half hour, 40 minutes doing some yoga and you get massive benefits.
Yeah, I think there's a definite switch that there's certain postures that work for men and not, and certain ones that don't. And it's having that knowledge of saying, right, this one just simply won't work for our body types because we're too tight in certain areas. So it has to be properly put together, or you have to at least have that knowledge of using certain props and stuff. So you're not going to hurt your back. I mean, I've had a lot of issues in the past in yoga with my lower back, and I know what it is. It's because I've had a few back issues from strongman, and it's the twisting, these massive twists. Yeah. And so I've just got to be very aware that I can't over twist, and the forward folds, bending your knees a little bit. And it doesn't matter if you don't look great because your legs aren't straight. It's really about saying, this is my practice and this is my body, and everybody's different. And then there's vinyasa, which is more mobile and kind of flows. And then there's yin, which is more for the joints and the connective tissue, where you're holding those postures for 3 to 5 minutes. And I think a lot of men would really benefit from that, especially older guys, because it's nourishing the fascia and the connective tissues, which is often what they need as they get a bit older.
Yeah, I did Ashtanga, which was quite. I did 6 months of Ashtanga, which was very flowing and quite aerobic almost. You come out of there with a proper sweat on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I did enjoy that, and it was quite a long session. Actually, it was nearly an hour and a quarter.
It's a long time.
But at the end of it, they used to do the meditation bit. The chill out, and everyone used to nod off. So is that something you said? You mentioned mindfulness there. You started that yourself? Or
it's something I'd always been big at visualization when I was training for stuff. And when I did Gladiators, I did loads of visualization because I was never like the biggest or the strongest or the fastest, but I always had this really good, I think it was from the bodybuilding mentality. So young, I could lock in. I really had this ability to kind of focus and be absolutely, completely focused on one thing. So the mindfulness has kind of been there, but in a different way. And I think as I got a little bit older, it was about having that transition because I was so young. Everything I did was so aggressive and so fiery, fire. Yeah. And it was really about getting that balance. My scales were always a little bit like this. And I think the mindfulness, I've always been into music. I was a drummer. Played guitar for 20 years, and I was the bongo man, the guy in the club with the cowboy hat. So I always had an interest in music. And it was just switching that, rather than playing like Oasis or something, rather switching it to the sounds of the body and playing gongs and handpans and slightly different. And I really enjoyed that. And it's like a personal journey as well. I'd actually do it for a job, but it's actually something I started doing for myself.
It's kind of mindfulness anyway, isn't it? Because while you're playing that, you're kind of focused so in the moment, I imagine, that you're not really thinking about anything else. You're not thinking,
I could never meditate. I've never been good at meditating, but gong baths are a form of meditation. You're laid there and the music just washes through the body, and you're in that kind of rest and digest state rather than the fight or flight where all the good stuff happens to your body. So that's how it worked for me. I went to Bali on holiday and I went to this sound bath in a pyramid, and it was like an out of body experience. It was like I was unbelievable, and that's how I kind of got inspired to get involved.
Yeah, nice one. I was going to ask you actually what got you, into the more spiritual side of things. I was wondering whether you'd played around with ayahuasca or psychedelics or anything like that, and
No, I never have. The thing is that, like, I don't really drink anymore, or I haven't drunk for, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years. And everyone I know who tries that, they vomit for 2 days. Oh. Yeah. And I just couldn't think of anything worse.
Well, I did it in Peru, believe it or not. And,
really?
Yeah, they give you a bed. So you lay in the jungle in this shed basically. And you got a bed and you've got a bowl to be sick in. And that's all you've got. And so it's about 30 minutes into it, you throw up. That's kind of everyone does. And then you wait and you hopefully have, some kind of experience. It was a little bit disappointing for me, but I don't know.
Really?
I think I'd like to try it again, maybe a higher dosage or something.
What experience did you have?
Well, have you ever done mushrooms?
No, I don't. No,
I've never played around
in Amsterdam, but I don't think I really have, no.
It's a bit like that. But I was hoping for a bit more. Maybe I was hoping for too much. I don't know. But it was still an experience. It was still an experience.
I've heard about this this toad stuff. I've never tried that, but I remember Tyson talking about it. He said he's taken all this stuff, but the toad stuff is the one that's
Is
that right? Heard of that?
Yeah, what's it called? It begins with K. Is it 𝗚𝗟𝗔𝗗𝗬𝗓?
Oh, is it?
I don't know, but he kept going on about
literally lick a toad.
No, it's from a toad. But it's similar to the ayahuasca stuff. It's
right. So it's okay. I got you. So with your going to clients, have you adapted to what you do with clients now, or are you just go with what you've always?
I don't really train people one-to-one much. I just do a little bit. I tend to do. I've got an online site that I've just kind of set off, but because I was doing more athletes and that kind of thing, the one-to-one I don't do that much of. So when I did do one-to-one was about 10 years ago, and I suppose it just depends on what they want. But I think every trainer brings an aspect of their own knowledge into somebody's training. And I think the key I always found when training people is to try and find an element that they enjoy. So if you train somebody that enjoys strength and enjoys that kind of modified strongman, especially women, I mean, they can really love it.
They do, don't they?
Push that more and get people to find an element that they enjoy. If they enjoy the high rep stuff, get them doing that. I know some people who they can't sit still. So superset them all the time. Don't give them these 90-second rests. So it's about adapting your training to what they like. And if you can do that and then they enjoy it, then you'll retain them. That's how you get to keep them.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, that's always, me and Phil have talked about this before in our podcast about how much women actually enjoy strength training. It's always quite surprising. They, once they get their teeth into it, they're always surprised themselves how much they enjoy it. Because it's not something.
The biggest mistake I think often is made by women training on their own is that they don't use a heavy enough weight because they're scared they're going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And if they get that load and understand they haven't got the testosterone levels in their body, that they're going to actually change their shape rather than change their get massive. I don't get me wrong, of course there are some women that can get big, but as a rule they won't. There's always exceptions to the rule, of course, but as a rule they will massively benefit from strength training.
I think that was something that Nick Mitchell, I think it was Nick Mitchell from Ultimate Performance, said that more women should train like men and more men should train like women.
That's very profound.
In the sense of like the good form and slightly lighter weight.
I mean, I used to manage one of his gyms, and issue with their gym, Mayfair.
Yeah, I've never been to one.
The issue with their gyms is they're so obsessed with transformations. They're just obsessed with it. Yeah, and it's not about longevity. And I can tell you 90% of them bounce back.
Yeah, of course.
And they make these people buy all these supplements. They live like monks.
Yeah.
They're eating in non-sustainable manners. Then they leave because they're charging a fortune for sessions, and then they double their weight. And for me, I always had a real problem with that place just because they fire all these pictures and it's great, but they just don't sustain it. And I think the reality is we need to change and instill solid life habits, not just do these quick fix transformations. And it's great. You can look good for your wedding. You can look good for an event or something, but it's just not sustainable. And I remember a trainer getting told off there because he was stretching somebody. And he embarrassed him in front of all the group. And he said, somebody was stretching someone. And I was thinking, what? And who saw him stretch them? And I was like, what's going on? And he said, no, you demolished them for an hour. They should be crawling out on their hands and knees. And I'm just thinking, this is not what I want to be part of. It was just like, it was very naughty, really.
They treat their clients like they're all they treat everyday people like someone's going into a bodybuilding competition. It's like,
exactly. And the trouble is he tends to employ bodybuilders.
Yeah, I know.
And don't get me wrong, if you want a quick fix, and the gyms are amazing, but I just think the ethos for me was all wrong anyway.
Well, I actually train one of their ex-clients at the moment, and he was quite taken aback at first because I wasn't screaming in his face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was expecting me to be like that. I said, well, you've come to the wrong place, mate. That's not how I do it. And, you adapt and like you said, the workouts are so extreme and so, debilitating sometimes that they would literally be crawling out of there. But, he said himself, he looked phenomenal when he finished, but within 6 months, completely.
All of them. Yeah. Well, the funny thing is that they have a picture of this guy, Glenn. It's amazing before and after. I mean, it's amazing. 12 weeks. Yeah. But Glenn was in amazing shape anyway, and they fattened him up for 2 months like a cow. He was sat there eating donuts and cream. He was a trainer. you know.
Right.
So they fattened him up like a cow, and then Nick trained him twice a day for 12 weeks and put him on this much. That's why he'd already been in amazing shape. So people used to come into me and point at his thing and say, I want to look like, and that look like that, who'd never done any exercise before. And I was just a bit like, if only you knew what had gone on there. So again, that was a little bit, you know, it's all a bit of an optical illusion, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think they're famous for their before and after pictures, aren't they? That's selling point.
And you know what? It's a great sales pitch. People love it.
It is.
And it is great. And it's like anything in life as humans, we want a quick fix. We all want something without putting the work on. You get 10 weeks, you can look like this. But the reality is if you do put yourself in such a starved state, in such a difficult social position where, you know, your family and everything, you just can't cope, there will be a rebound. And the rebound can often put you in a worse place than where you start. So it's about the tortoise and the hare, really. If you're a bit more patient, implement these habits for life, not just for Christmas, then you can change your body and it will stay there rather than having this constant yo-yo. But funny enough, I had a guy come to me quite recently and he showed me a picture and he looked like a professional bodybuilder, and he turned up, he just looked like some fat old van driver. And again, he'd done the 12 weeks there, and he said it nearly killed me. It nearly killed me. And he'd had this professional photo shoot, and you know, he was like dining out on this photo, which him for 5 days basically.
Yeah, he looked great for 5 days, and then it was a slow decline.
Oh, it's madness. So common.
We've seen quite a bit of that. And
speaking of that, then what's your nutritional kind of what's your diet like?
So
what's your philosophies on diet?
Yeah, I'm very into kind of rainbow eating. Hang on, let me just shut these up. Oi, Smudge, come here. There's just because there are Amazon deliveries at the door, you see, so they just bark when there's someone at the door.
Oh, you've just been to the vet, hasn't he?
No, it's Little. She's going this afternoon.
Oh, right.
Let me just. She's just had a cruciate operation, so she can't walk. That's why I'm trying to stop them ringing the bell. So I tend to eat, because I was been implementing the bodybuilding diet for so young and had it for so many years. I am quite a bland eater. Yeah. So, but I do try and eat very colourful food. I'm not big on red meat. I don't eat a lot. I'm not like a massive eater like I was in the strongman powerlifting days. So I just eat really healthy meals, lean protein sources, lots of vegetables. And every time I eat a meal, I think, right, let's get a bit of red on there. Let's get some green on there. You know, so I try and keep it really colourful. I do have a habit, really, I think, of eating the same every day, especially during lockdown. Like I get my eggs delivered, I get some fish delivered. And I think I became a bit like a robot in that sense. But yeah, as far as eating, I'm not big on dairy. I tend to drink like a bit of oat milk. I drink loads of water. I think that's really important to keep hydrated. Loads of vegetables. And I don't eat a lot of red meat. I tend to eat more fish and protein powder, for example. I'm not a big believer in whey, just for my stomach. It tends to bloat me. So I have vegan protein powder. I'm not trying to get bigger or anything like that. I'm just trying to sustain, really. I think if I was consciously trying to get bigger, I might change that. But
of course,
as it stands, I probably eat 4 meals a day, and they're just like normal portions, really. Yeah. Protein is probably the key element to all of those.
Yeah, that's something we've been drilling into everyone. Hopefully, I'm just going to ask you a quick question about the vegetarian protein, actually, because you know I've played around with it for some of the clients, but I don't really know what the best thing to recommend is, because to be honest, I've never really found anything I quite like. The pea protein probably comes the closest. What do you?
Well, I'm one of Dorian Yates's master trainers, and I know Dorian. You know, I went out to Marbella a few times. I've trained with him, and we've got a few things that we do together. And so I actually use his Renew. It's called DY Renew Vegan Protein. Right. And I just add to it. What's quite nice about it is it comes in an individual sachet. Right. Which, do you know when you're going to get shit everywhere because your protein powder stuff. So it comes in individual sachets, which I really like. I just make that with ice, water. I put in a banana and some peanut butter, and I have that post-workout every time, and it tastes great. Yeah, it tastes great. That's what I do. But I just found with I've tried all different kinds of whey, and often they're like a McDonald's milkshake. I mean, that used to be my favorite meal of the day, my whey protein. But every time I felt a bit bloated and not comfortable. And with the vegan, I just don't get that. Now, I know it's not complete protein, but if you're getting protein, I'm not vegan. Yeah, so you know, I eat meat, fish. So I'm just really taking that protein powder as a quick fix, just to get that little boost post workout. You know, that 20-minute window post workout.
Yeah, brilliant. Sorry, what were you going to say, Phil?
I can't remember now.
Conscious of your time, mate. So we've probably got another 5 minutes or so, and then.
No, I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm taking her to the vet, but I'm all right for about 10, 15 minutes, so no problem.
Phil's a big dog person. He's got 5, haven't you, mate?
Oh, I did have. Now
sugar.
We did, but now I've got 2. We've got a French bulldog and a Pomsky, which is I was expecting my dogs to be the ones that cause.
Oh right. They
I put mine outside
sleep all day. Yeah.
What have you got?
I've got 2 bulldogs, but they're actually they're real home dogs. But if the bell rings, they bark and then they go back to sleep. But yeah, one of them, the bigger one had both her cruciates done 2 years ago, and then the little ones went 10 days ago. So she's had the operation. I'm just taking her in for kind of the second glance at it, if you like. But yeah, it's bulldogs, as you know, with the Frenchie, they're problematic breeds.
Yeah, no, it was his birthday a few weeks back, and his arse fell out quite literally. He literally prolapsed it. Yeah, so we've had to spend.
You have all the best bits, don't you, mate?
Yeah,
so what was that? What was that from?
Just we don't know. He came back in and his arse was hanging out. Like,
when you say hanging out, right? The intestine.
His butthole was basically so they popped it back in, and he actually had to have a separate. So they popped it back in and sewed up. He's actually had to have his his insides stapled or like basically attached to the abdominals to the body.
Oh, baby.
But so apparently that's quite common with them. Yeah. So.
Yeah, poor thing. I mean, this is the thing, you get so attached to them, don't you?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Going from prolapsed anuses back to Gladiator.
I was
trying to segue that. I'm struggling.
That's a first.
No, but I was going to ask a question. What was it like? What was it like dealing with the the psychological thing about being on TV and performing? Is that something you?
To be honest, I didn't even notice.
You just don't notice
because, I mean, bear in mind when we did it, there was 10,000 people watching. But I think at the time, I was so obsessed with winning every event. I was like obsessed. I almost didn't realize until afterwards that there were people even really there. And during the first year, because I'd been invited onto the show 10 days after being in Mr. Britain. So I'd done no athletic training at all. So the first year for me was an absolute struggle. And I think that having such a struggle is what inspired me to become so athletic during the latter years, because I was so bad in the first year. I just thought I will never let this happen again. And then I became obsessed with being the best at every event, not just kind of 1 or 2. I wanted to be the best on everything. So that was why when I was actually in it, that concentration, I didn't really think about people around me. It was more just kind of focusing on that. And also because the show takes a little while, I remember we filmed it in June, but then it wasn't on telly till October. And then you don't get really well known for a year or so. So it was kind of a slow build.
Yeah.
It wasn't everybody was on me, but I mean, it was 18 million viewers, everywhere we went when it was at its peak, you'd be like, and funny enough, since I've been on the circle, I've had my neighbor and I've got an Airbnb I rent out, and one Airbnb guest mentioned it. Everybody else. So it just shows you the difference when you've got 4 channels as opposed to 4,000 channels, that people don't really, the circle kind of came and went, whereas Gladiators, 18 million people, it was such a huge watch.
It was massive,
and people didn't have any other options.
That was a big part of our weekend.
It was.
Yeah.
And I think also I've made a note of this here. I think it inspired quite a few people as well to actually start training. I know it didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I was 19. You were 19, weren't you, when you started Gladiator? Were you?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're not far off age, and I was training then anyway. But it definitely made me think, hey, that's a decent goal. I want to get like that. And Shadow doesn't look great now, does he? But Shadow doesn't look so good now.
But Shadow, we were drug tested, so they decided to drug test us. And I mean, 1 year I had something like 22 drug tests. So part of our job is we would go and open a bowling alley, in Leicester, and you'd turn up at this bowling alley, and there'd be 3 people waiting for you, and they'd say, right, next time you go to the toilet, we're taking it. So. Wow. They were obsessed with us all being, because we were kids' heroes. Yeah. They were obsessed with us all being drug-free. So fair enough, we did the drug test, and Shadow tested positive. I think it was for steroids and cocaine while he was doing Panto in Sunderland. So God knows what he was taking.
Well, let's face it, Panto in Sunderland, that would drive you to cocaine, wouldn't it?
Exactly, yeah. So it's a shame, because he was obviously troubled, but such a nice bloke. But he'd had a very difficult past. He had lots of stuff going on, but you know, he's I haven't spoken to him since he left, so I can't really comment on.
No, I was just wondering.
I literally saw him, and then he was gone, and I've never spoke to him since. And you know, I'm in touch with most of them, but because he left so early on in the journey, if you like, we never really kind of exchanged numbers and became like good buddies or anything.
No, he did a song, didn't he? I remember that. Did he? I remember him doing a song, didn't he? War, what is it good for?
Oh right, yeah. Well, I think that was his song when we walked out. We all had different songs.
That's it. And he was singing it. Yeah.
Again, when Gladiators became so big, they had us doing like the boys are back in town and stuff like that. I mean, it was crazy. The merchandise. Yeah. I mean, even now people show me stuff which I didn't even know existed. I only found out recently there was a Gladiator cheese. Well, what is that all about? I didn't even know this existed. And somebody said, "Oh yeah, Gladiator cheese." But I mean, they had more merchandise in WWF. You know, they just had everything: lunch boxes, dolls, posters.
It must have made them a fortune, mustn't it? It must have made.
Yeah, because we didn't get any merchandise rights, so that was all them. So you know, it was. That's why we didn't know what was going on. But yeah, it was just recently someone put on Facebook about a Gladiator cheese, and I was just like, I didn't even know that existed.
That's amazing.
I'm trying to even think of how that came up in conversation. They must have been. I know what we're missing: Gladiator cheese.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've just done everything, and they thought, yeah, the only thing we haven't got is cheese. So.
Dairy products.
Dairy products, yeah.
Missing the dairy products angle.
But I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? A show like that is sponsored by Frosties, which would go against all of the kind of health.
Absolutely, yeah. Have some some sugar-covered carbohydrates.
Exactly, yeah. 20 grams of sugar or whatever. But
yeah, I know. I always use that as an example, and that and Coke. I think per can,
yeah,
it's like 22 teaspoons of sugar or something ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, sodas are very, very full of sugar.
Yeah. I think I've kind of got through all of my questions that I wanted to ask you pretty much. Have you got anything else you want to chat
No,
about?
I mean, no. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Phil. No,
I was just going to say, yeah, the other one. I was going to come to you next.
I'm trying to turn off my Alexa, decided to just connect.
I wonder what that was.
I was like, mute. What do they do that? They just suddenly just start up for no fucking reason.
I haven't got one, so I'm out of that loop.
No,
that was
really good. I could have talked for hours, but no, it's I just wanted to hear. Good to hear how the training has changed. How do you deal with personally? How do you deal with obviously downsizing from a mental point of view as you get older? Like, you know, when people are bodybuilders, they used to be low body fat and quite big, and then just accepting that I'm going through it now and picking up injuries, and I've just realised that I've done one competition, I did a powerlifting competition, I did one of each bodybuilding, and I've just decided that I'm probably at my genetic max. I'm getting injuries. And I've decided to go back to, I'm going to probably start some yoga, and I think I might go back to kickboxing for some sport, some more fitness. It's quite a hard thing.
This is what we were saying, isn't it? With the transition of strongman to yoga, it's changing the mindset. I mean, I've never been massive. Even when I was competing in strongman, I was like, I never looked like a strongman. I was going against guys who were like 6'9" and 60, 70. In fact, one guy was, I think, 87 kilos heavier than me at one point. And when I did Gladiators, I was 103 kg, and I'm 110 now. So my body hasn't massively changed, just because I'm always quite lean. Never been like a massive bodybuilder, apart from when I was bodybuilding in my teens. Yeah. So I think as far as my physique's concerned, it hasn't massively changed. I've just kind of maintained the same. It's more about the mentality of lifting crazy weights and that buzz you get from doing something completely unique and attacking the weights. And I think when you actually make that decision that it's not annihilation, but nurturing and nourishing the body, and you want to grow old gracefully without limping and back pain and bad knees. And then you mix that in with some training you like, which is the weights. And then you add your kickboxing, which is great, and bits of other pieces, that you can still have this amazing body. Because at the end of the day, you know, if you drop a bit of body fat, your body's going to look great anyway. So I think it's a case of changing that mentality to rather having these massive arms to having this leaner, more athletic.
As he gets out a massive arm.
That's
probably the hardest thing for me. It's not necessarily it's not the body shape. It's the going into the gym and being like, right, I want everyone to watch me squat 200 or rack pull 300. I want people
exactly.
It's very difficult. But then day you got to do it because because if I hurt myself, I'm fucked.
But you know what? It's a journey. It's not something that'll happen overnight. But it's like being an alcoholic. The first thing is making that decision that you want to make a change.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have to do it gradually. But you have to keep reminding yourself, otherwise you'll get more injuries. Because it took me almost a year, and I was going, I'm going to do another comp. I'm going to go and lift these stones. I'm going to do this. Bang, another injury. Bang, another injury. This shoulder, I ended up having 5 cortisones in it. I still can't bench press. I haven't been able to bench press for a year.
Yeah, I've got an issue.
No chest pressing.
Yeah, I did a bench pressing. I've just had an MRI. I've got a little bit of arthritis and the tendon is bad, and I've got the pain on the other side. It's just not so bad. So typically both sides.
So you're having all the warnings. You're having all the warnings here that are saying that God's giving you a chance. He's saying, right, this is your chance.
Yeah.
So you have to listen.
It's very true. No, yeah, that is true, and it is hard to do. But at the end of the day, you got to focus on. You got to do what you're doing. Is focus on. I'm only 38. If I keep fucking up these shoulders, I'm going to end up so injured. I'm not going to be able to train at all at some point, and not even for me skinny fat probably because that's my natural build. So,
but there's always remember there's always a way. There's always a way around it. So I've not been able to do any pressing for a year, but I can shoulder press. I can do lat raise. There's always a way around it. But
can you do flies? Can you do cable flies? No?
I could do a crossover, but I couldn't come up. I could only have to do the bottom section, the bottom quarter.
Right, got you.
Yeah.
So I've got this flat chest and these massive shoulders. So everything's completely changed.
Yeah, no.
It makes my arms look bigger now with this flat chest.
Yeah.
That's what I've convinced myself. But
that's why you get the pipes out all the time.
Exactly, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Listen, mate, it's a joy. Thank you very much, mate. Really it's great to chat to you. Is there any social media stuff you want us to promote or anything else you want?
So I've just launched the 𝗥𝗘𝗔𝗗𝗜𝗥𝗦.com, which is online training. So that's the main thing that I'm doing at the moment. And then obviously my Instagram, everything. It's the only social media I'm really on. I deleted Twitter, Facebook I don't really use. So yeah, if you can direct people to the Instagram or 𝗥𝗘𝗔𝗗𝗜𝗥𝗦.com, that'd be great.
Brilliant. I'll get your handles and everything off you on an email. Just send that over and then I'll put that in our show notes and we'll go from there.
Awesome.
Okay, nice to speak to you guys.
Thank you. That's great chatting to you, mate. Thanks a lot.
Make sure you make those changes.
Well, Phil. Yeah. Well,
yes, Dad.
I think.
No, I have been.
All right, guys.
Thanks a lot, mate.
See you later.
Cheers, buddy.
Bye.